Have you ever disappeared inside your own life? Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you slowly erased yourself just to keep the peace? Tonight's story is not just about marriage. It is not just about betrayal. It is about something far more dangerous, the silent death of identity. This is the story of a woman who had a degree, ambition, brilliance, and was convinced that shrinking herself was love. It is the story of how society sometimes praises sacrifice, but rarely warns us about self-erasure. And it is the story of what happens when a woman remembers who she is. If you have ever felt unseen, if you have ever been told you wouldn't understand, if you have ever doubted your own brilliance because someone you loved dimmed your light, stay with me. Because this story might not just move you, it might wake you up. The gold band on Ninchioma's fourth finger had once felt like a crown. Now it felt like a chain. 5 years earlier, in a crowded church hall in Enugu, her father had placed her hand in Chike's with trembling pride. Ululations filled the air. The choir sang. Chike's cologne, clean sandalwood, had wrapped around her like a promise. She had believed in forever with the kind of faith only a hopeful woman can carry. Back then, Ninchioma Is was not small. She had graduated with honors in business administration. She had earned her junior management position at a rising tech firm in Lagos. She wore structured blazers and walked into boardrooms with calm authority. She managed budgets that ran into millions. Her emails were precise. Her laughter was full and unapologetic. Then Ada was born. 6 months into the marriage, Chike had sat her down, his hands warm around hers. "My love, we don't need your income. Stay home. Raise our children without stress. A woman's place is the heart of the home." He said it softly, lovingly. She packed away her suits. At first, she believed she had been promoted to motherhood, to peace, to comfort. But peace slowly became isolation. Comfort became confinement. The erosion did not happen in one dramatic blow. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, a gentle pat on her hand when she spoke about the economy. "You wouldn't understand these financial structures." A chuckle at dinner with his friends. "Don't mind my wife. Her head is full of nursery rhymes now." Laughter around the table. Each comment chipped away at her. Not loudly, not violently, but effectively. Meanwhile, Chike changed. He stayed out later. The scent on his shirts shifted from sandalwood to something floral and foreign, sweet perfume mixed with whiskey. He came home to cold food and colder silence. The children, Ada and Obi, would already be asleep, their small bodies curled together in the shared bedroom. And Ninchioma would sit alone in the dim light, wondering how she had become
How did I
invisible
become
in her own
invisible
marriage.
in my own house and
She tried
marriage?
everything. She mastered his mother's soups until her fingers were raw from grinding crayfish and ogbono. She traded Ankara wrappers for expensive Western dresses he preferred. She softened her opinions, muted her proverbs, smoothed her edges. Still, he drifted. The breaking point came when she suggested a family trip to the village. "Not this year," he said, waving his hand dismissively.
The village.
Not this year. You wouldn't understand. I have commitments. You wouldn't understand.
The phrase echoed for weeks. That was when the idea took root. Late one night, when the house was silent and Chike slept in the guest room, she powered on an old tablet her brother had once given her. The screen lit her face in the darkness. She created a profile. Name, Naya. Profile photo. A stock image of a sharp-eyed woman with a sleek bob. Occupation. Project management and corporate strategy consultant. It wasn't deception. It was resurrection. Online, Naya came alive. She debated mergers, analysed market trends, discussed leadership frameworks with authority she hadn't used in years. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Her mind stretched and expanded. For the first time in 5 years, she felt oxygen. Then one Tuesday night, a message arrived. Username, The Chieftain 88. Profile photo, Chike in a bar. Her heart stopped. Public comment. This Naya person knows her stuff. Private message. Would love to connect over a drink. Your perspective is refreshingly sharp. My wife wouldn't know a balance sheet from a laundry list. The cruelty of it did not break her. It clarified her. He was searching for the very woman he had buried. So she played along. As Naya, she challenged him, debated him, withheld just enough to keep him chasing. He grew enthralled. He confided. He complained about the ball and chain. He praised Naya's intellect while belittling Nikioma in the same breath. Nikioma began taking screenshots, not out of vengeance, out of strategy. Because this was no longer about catching a cheating husband. It was about reclaiming power. The rooftop invitation came like a drumbeat. Come to the industry mixer, he wrote. I need to see you. She accepted. She did not buy a new dress. She retrieved the charcoal grey power suit she had hidden at the back of her closet. It was slightly snug. It fit like memory. She pulled her hair into a sleek knot, applied makeup with precision. When she looked in the mirror, she did not see Naya. She saw Nikioma, whole again. At the rooftop bar, Lagos shimmered beneath city lights. Music pulsed, laughter floated. She saw him before he saw her, confident, polished, performing. When his eyes landed on her, he smiled the way men smile when they believe they've won. I'm Chike, he said smoothly, extending his hand. Naya, I presume? She took his hand firmly. The pleasure is mine. They talked. He leaned closer, praised her brilliance, mocked his wife. She's sweet, but simple. Each word stripped away the last illusions she carried. He didn't want a partner. He wanted control. When he suggested they leave together, she stood. Not tonight. She walked away without looking back. That night at home, she confronted him. Not with screams, with evidence. When he realized Naya was Nikioma, horror drained his face. The man who thought he was orchestrating a secret affair understood he had been intellectually outplayed. The following days were quiet, terrifyingly quiet. She asked for capital, 500,000 naira. For startup costs. She mentioned lawyers, evidence. The money arrived within the hour. Then she moved. She hired a professional nanny, Funker, competent and steady. The children adapted quickly. Ada watched her mother with new curiosity. Obi clung to her legs in the evenings, but laughed freely in the garden. Nichioma called her former professor. Within weeks, she secured her first consulting client. The dining table became a command center of spreadsheets and strategy documents. Chike began coming home earlier, but he was no longer the center of the house. He was a visitor in a system he no longer controlled. When he presented a post-nuptial agreement, offering 50% of his assets, she read it calmly. Thank you, she said. This secures the children. She didn't sign it as reconciliation. She signed it as insurance. Months turned into a year. Nichioma Ize Consulting opened its doors in a small office with large windows and a city view. She hired staff, streamlined supply chains, increased profits for struggling businesses. Her name became recommendation currency. At home, the children flourished. Ada grew observant and bold. "Mama, you smile more now," she said one evening. Obi stopped asking why Daddy didn't sleep over. Children adjust to peace faster than adults adjust to pride. Chike changed too, but differently. He became quieter, more attentive with the children, less arrogant in rooms where Nichioma now stood equal. He had lost not just a wife. He had lost the illusion that he was the only mind in the marriage. Eventually, the divorce papers were signed without drama. No screaming matches, just signatures. She purchased her own home, a bright bungalow with a small garden. On moving day, Ada ran through the empty rooms, laughing. "Is this ours, Mama?" "Yes," Nikioma said. "Ours." That night, after the children slept, she stood alone in her new kitchen. No perfume ghosts, no waiting, no shrinking. She touched her bare ring finger. It felt light, not empty. Light. The ghost of Naya had faded. She no longer needed an alias to feel intelligent. No longer needed performance to feel worthy. Chike's life was impacted too. He became a father who showed up on time, a man more cautious with his words, a businessman who learned, too late, that respect cannot be postponed. And Ninkioma, she became something larger than a wife. She became an example. To her daughter, that intelligence is not arrogance. To her son, that women are not ornaments. To herself, that identity is not a privilege granted by a husband. It is a birthright. The story of a woman who tried to shrink for love had ended. The story of a woman who expanded for herself had just begun. Ninchioma's story is not about revenge. It is about reclamation. It teaches us that education is not just about degrees. It is about self-worth. Marriage is not about control. It is about partnership. Love does not require you to become smaller. When someone asks you to silence your intelligence, soften your strength, or shrink your dreams in order to keep them comfortable, that is not protection. That is containment, and containment eventually breaks. But here is the most important lesson. You do not need to create another version of yourself to be valued. You only need the courage to return to who you already are. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to rediscover yourself? Because sometimes the most powerful comeback is not loud. It is simply a woman standing up and refusing to be small ever again.